Imagine you're driving down a highway at like 60 miles an hour, but your windshield is completely blacked out.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
Right, it is. I mean, the only instrument you have on your dash is your speedometer.
Okay.
So you know you're doing 60, but you have literally no idea if you're on this like empty interstate or if you're blowing through a crowded school zone.
Yeah, that's a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. You have data, right?
Yeah.
60 miles an hour, but you have zero environmental context.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is exactly what running a business with unbenchmarked data feels like.
Completely blind.
Yeah. So, welcome to episode number 28 in our series, Data Design with Mockup. Today, we're basically dissecting a strategy to strip that blackout paint off your windshield. We are diving into leveraging benchmarking to enhance your dashboard wireframes.
And the mission here for this deep dive is really looking at the mechanical difference between just displaying numbers on a screen and actually designing a strategic roadmap.
Right.
We're focusing on how integrating benchmarking into the very foundation of your dashboard analytics takes all that raw, isolated data and transforms it into an engine for, well, continuous, measurable improvement.
It's a total game changer.
It really is. I mean, we are moving way past the baseline of simply knowing where your metrics currently stand and exploring how to set structurally sound, higher standards.
So let's unpack this word for a second context.
Yeah.
I mean, if a company opens their analytics dashboard today and they see, say, 10,000 website visitors for the month.
The immediate reaction is usually validation. High fives all around, right?
Exactly. We did it, 10,000 people. But without benchmarking, that 10,000 is essentially a ghost metric. It doesn't mean anything.
It's just a number in a vacuum.
Right, because if the industry standard for their specific niche is, say, 50,000 visitors, they aren't succeeding. They're actually hemorrhaging market share.
Yeah, they're losing badly.
But if the standard is 2,000, then they are absolutely dominating. The number on the screen hasn't changed at all. It's still 10,000, but the reality of the business shifts entirely based on the benchmark.
Which I think brings us perfectly to the formal definition of what we're actually doing here.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Because benchmarking isn't just, taking a casual glance at a competitor's pricing page once a quarter.
Right, it's not creeping on their website.
Exactly. It's a methodical, highly organized approach to evaluating your organization's metrics, your operations, and your products against similar businesses or industry peers.
It's systematic.
Very. It's a structured evaluation loop. When you introduce this kind of environmental context into your dashboard analytics, you basically stop reacting to past data and you start anticipating future movements.
Okay, so the sources for our deep dive outline 3 specific benefits that materialize when you build this context into your dashboards: trend spotting, growth potential, and market position.
Yeah, those are the big 3.
Let's break down how those actually function, like mechanically, starting with trend spotting.
So trend spotting is really about measuring the velocity of change. By using website analytics and traffic data that are constantly benchmarked against industry averages, you aren't just looking at what consumers bought yesterday.
Which is what most people do, right?
Right, but it's too late by then. With benchmarking, you're looking at micro shifts in traffic engagement and search interest. So say your engagement drops by 2% this month.
Panic mode, usually.
Right, the alarm bells go off. But if the industry average drops by 15% in that same time, your dashboard shouldn't flag a failure. It should actually highlight that your retention strategy is outperforming the market during a downturn.
Wow, okay. That reframes the entire analysis.
Yeah.
You aren't just measuring raw numbers, you're measuring your resilience against the broader economic weather.
Exactly. And then you have growth potential. A benchmark dashboard gives you this amazing bird's eye view of the entire market.
So you can see where everyone else is falling short.
Precisely. It highlights the exact gaps where your competitors are underserving the audience. And finally, clarifying your market position.
Which is tracking traffic share, audience demographics, all that.
Right, but not in a vacuum. You track it to see if your digital marketing activities are yielding a higher return on investment relative to your direct rivals. Basically, you're measuring the efficiency of your capital.
So we're talking about measuring traffic engagement, search interest, demographics, channel performance, volume over time. I mean, that is an enormous amount of raw information to ingest.
It's massive.
If an organization tries to tackle all of that simultaneously, it just creates cognitive overload, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It paralyzes people, which is exactly why benchmarking cannot be treated as this, monolithic concept.
You have to break it down.
Right. The sources actually categorize benchmarking into several distinct types, or flavors, if you will. Understanding these variations is how a team organizes and filters that massive data intake.
Okay, let's create a scenario to ground this because I want to see how this actually works. Imagine a mid-sized B2B software company. Let's just call them CloudStream.
Okay, CloudStream, I like it.
Let's say they provide video hosting for enterprise clients. How does CloudStream actually apply these different flavors of benchmarking?
Well, we'd start with the most direct one, which is product benchmarking.
So comparing the actual software.
Exactly. CloudStream would compare their core video hosting service directly with their rivals. They're assessing standard features like video rendering speed, pricing tiers, maximum file sizes, things like that.
Okay, makes sense. What's next?
Next is process benchmarking, which looks completely under the hood.
Not the final product, but how it's made.
Right. CloudStream wouldn't look at the software itself. They'd assess their internal company operations. So they might compare their server deployment process or their customer onboarding pipeline to top-tier firms.
To find operational inefficiencies.
Exactly, and systematically reduce costs.
Got it. So product benchmarking focuses on the external deliverable, while process benchmarking focuses on the internal manufacturing of that deliverable.
That is the perfect dividing line. So moving outward from there, we have competitive benchmarking.
The big head-to-head?
Yeah, the macro matchup. CloudStream contrasts their overall market share, brand sentiment, financial performance directly with their primary rivals. It reveals their exact market position.
But a company doesn't always need to evaluate its entire structure at once, right? Like, that's a lot.
No, definitely not. That's where functional benchmarking comes in. It allows CloudStream to isolate particular divisions.
Like just looking at HR.
Yeah, they could compare their human resources procedures or, say, their supply chain logistics for physical servers to comparable businesses. The goal is to find optimal methods for highly specific roles, even if the compared company isn't a direct rival at all.
Interesting. And then there's performance benchmarking, which, if I'm tracking this right, zeroes in on the raw key performance indicators.
You got it. It's CloudStream comparing their customer churn rate or their average server uptime directly against agreed-upon industry standards.
Just to set concrete mathematical goals.
Exactly. Now, there are three more that dictate long-term architecture. Internal benchmarking contrasts different divisions inside the same company.
So like New York versus London.
Yeah, CloudStream might compare the sales conversion rate of their New York team against their London team. It identifies internal gaps and helps scale internal best practices.
Nice.
Then strategic benchmarking examines how different businesses execute long-term planning and adapt to market shifts over like a 5 or 10-year horizon.
Playing the long game.
Always. And finally, global benchmarking forces a company to evaluate their performance against international rivals, basically preventing them from getting too comfortable in their regional bubble.
Okay, so that covers 8 types. But the sources highlight a 9th type, and I really want to spend some time here. Generic benchmarking.
Ah, yes. The fun one.
Because this involves evaluating companies in completely unrelated fields. And I mean, let's be real, on the surface, that sounds highly inefficient.
It does sound a little crazy at first.
Right. Why on earth would our B2B video hosting company, CloudStream, spend analytical resources studying the dashboard metrics of, say, a global fast food chain?
It sounds totally counterintuitive until you look at the underlying structural logic. Generic benchmarking is actually the primary engine for structural innovation.
Really? How so?
Well, you're extracting principles from outside domains and applying them to your unique bottlenecks. So let's say CloudStream is struggling with customer support ticket resolution, right?
Okay, their queue is always backed up. People are mad.
Yeah, exactly. If they only look at other software companies, they will likely just adopt the exact same standard, slightly flawed ticketing system everyone else uses.
Oh, I see. They just inherit the industry's shared inefficiencies.
Exactly. But if CloudStream studies the fast food chain, they might analyze how that chain processes a high-volume drive-through order with near-zero friction during peak lunch hours. Oh, wow.
Right. They study the load balancing, the triage of orders, the physical assembly line mechanics. CloudStream can then strip away the hamburgers and French fries, take that underlying structural logic of triage and load balancing, and apply it directly to their software support ticketing pipeline.
That is brilliant. Solutions that disrupt an industry rarely come from inside that same industry.
Never. You are abstracting the efficiency and discarding the specific product.
Okay. But now the logistical problem becomes obvious. CloudStream has gathered product metrics from their rivals, HR metrics from a hospital for functional benchmarking, and drive-through triage data for generic benchmarking.
That's a lot of data.
If a data science team simply dumps all of those disparate data streams into a massive spreadsheet, well, I mean, it becomes completely unreadable for the actual decision makers.
The data becomes paralyzing instead of empowering.
Exactly. And this is the exact transition point where the dashboard solution becomes critical. Dashboards are designed to take these complex, heavy data sets from various external APIs and internal databases and synthesize them into a coherent visual hierarchy.
Because in a fluid, fast-paced environment, the primary function of a dashboard is accelerating the speed of decision-making.
Providing near real-time updates means leadership is making judgments based on today's weather, not last month's climate.
But, and this is a big but throwing data onto a screen and just calling it a dashboard doesn't solve the cognitive load problem at all.
No, it usually makes it worse.
Which brings us directly to the mechanics of wireframing, and specifically why a tool like Mockup is absolutely foundational here.
Mockup is key.
Right, because a dashboard wireframe is the core visual representation used by designers to map out the spatial layout and the information hierarchy before a single line of code is ever written.
Wireframing is about defining the signal-to-noise ratio. I mean, when you are dealing with dense benchmarking data, the physical placement of the information literally dictates how it will be interpreted by the user.
So if it's in the wrong spot, it's useless.
Exactly. If the industry standard metric is, say, buried behind a drop-down menu, while the internal metric is front and center,
The user loses the context immediately.
instantly. Which is why attempting to build a data-heavy dashboard without wireframing at first just results in a cluttered, unusable interface. Stakeholders end up arguing over database architecture when they really should be arguing over visual prioritization.
And Mockup serves as the essential wireframing tool to bridge that exact gap. It allows for rapid iteration of the design concept, smoothing the whole transition to final implementation.
Yeah, the synthesis of benchmarking and mockup wireframes is incredibly effective for three mechanical reasons.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, data visualization. You are intentionally designing the interface so the insights are impossible to overlook.
Right.
Second, contextual insights are built directly into the spatial design. So you wireframe the interface so your company's current performance metric sits physically adjacent to the industry standard on the screen.
So they're side by side.
Exactly. The human brain processes the gap between those two numbers instantly. And third, timely updates and customization.
Because the structure is already set.
Right. By wireframing first, you establish a resilient layout, a personalized structure tailored to the organization's specific goals that can seamlessly ingest real-time API updates later without completely breaking the visual hierarchy.
To see the impact of this, we can look at how major players utilize benchmark dashboards to literally control their markets. The sources detail several heavyweight implementations that are just fascinating.
Salesforce is a prime example of this.
Oh, yeah.
As a customer relationship management platform, they track every interaction a business has with its clients. Salesforce provides benchmarking dashboards that allow their users to compare their own sales conversion rates and customer service response times against anonymized, aggregated data from the rest of the industry.
So they're essentially crowdsourcing industry standards and feeding them back to the user in real time.
Exactly. It allows a sales manager to instantly see if their team's, say, 15-minute response time is a competitive advantage or a critical vulnerability.
That's incredibly powerful. And Airbnb applies the same concept to the micro-entrepreneur.
I love the Airbnb example.
It's so smart. They took what used to be enterprise-level data analysis and packaged it into a super user-friendly dashboard for everyday hosts.
Right, for just regular people renting out a room.
Yeah. An Airbnb host can open their app and see a wireframe that compares their specific properties' pricing, occupancy rate, and customer feedback against similar properties within, like, a 5-mile radius.
It democratizes the benchmarking process.
Totally. It allows a single property owner to dynamically adjust their pricing elasticity based on hyper-local market pressure.
And then if we want to talk about scale, we have to examine Uber.
Oh, Uber's algorithm is wild.
It really is. They operate on a highly algorithmic, dynamic benchmarking model. Uber's dashboard architecture doesn't just look at historical data. It actively ingests external street traffic data, weather APIs, local event schedules, and overlaps all of that with their internal GPS data and driver availability.
But wait, how does a system actually render that on a wireframe without the dashboard just lagging out under the weight of those constant API calls?
Well, it requires an incredibly resilient wireframe, one that prioritizes vital metrics like surge multipliers and driver ETAs while running all the heavy data aggregation in the background.
So the wireframe design protects the user experience.
Exactly. The visual dashboard updates dynamically to determine precise pricing for drivers and passengers. The benchmark is constantly shifting based on real-time supply and demand, and the interface has to communicate that shift instantly to a user who's just staring at their phone on a street corner.
Which is why the visual hierarchy has to be flawless.
Right. And Zomato utilizes a similar localized model, providing restaurants with actionable insights regarding average order values and delivery times, but compared to the specific rivals operating on their exact same city block.
These implementations really reveal the ultimate tangible benefits of benchmarking dashboards. They drive massive cost reduction by systematically identifying operational inefficiencies.
They do.
They allow companies to stay abreast of the competition in tech-dependent sectors by basically reverse engineering rival successes. And they dramatically boost customer satisfaction because benchmarking customer feedback forces a company to actively listen and adapt to shifting consumer expectations.
But, knowing that companies like Uber and Salesforce operate this way is useful context, but actually implementing it requires a strict methodology.
Right, you can't just flip a switch.
No. The sources break down a systematic 6-step process for building benchmarking into an organization's workflow.
Let's go through it. Step 1 is planning. And this requires ruthless specificity. A company cannot simply say they want to benchmark their performance.
That's way too vague.
Way too vague. They must define the exact target metric. Are they measuring the life cycle of a sales lead, the cost of customer acquisition, or server latency? The scope has to be narrow and defined.
And then step 2 is where you utilize mock-up. This is critical.
Yeah.
Your wireframe before you collect the external data.
Okay, I have to ask, why sequence it that way? Why not gather all the market data first so you know what you're working with, and then build the wireframe?
Because if you do not wireframe first, you will inevitably collect an absolute swamp of useless data.
Right, data overload again.
Exactly. The wireframing process acts as the filter. By using mock-up to visually map out exactly what metrics will be displayed and how they will be juxtaposed, you effectively define the parameters of your data collection.
You're drawing the boundaries.
You accelerate the transition from idea to finished product because the data science team now has a literal blueprint of exactly which API endpoints and datasets they need to source and nothing more.
That makes perfect sense. The design dictates the data requirements, which leads right into step 3, data collection.
Right.
This is the execution of that targeted search, gathering the specified data on internal processes and external rivals. Then step 4 is data analysis, where the collected information is processed to identify vulnerabilities and performance gaps. But the source text includes a very specific warning here.
Oh, this is the psychological part.
Yeah, it states that no business is perfect now, and you must be open-minded to assess facts without bias.
The psychological hurdle in step 4 really cannot be overstated. I mean, when a leadership team looks at a beautifully wireframed dashboard and the data clearly indicates they are losing market share to a rival, the instinctive human reaction is defense.
Oh, completely. The immediate reaction is usually to question the integrity of the data itself, right? Like, oh, our customers are different, or, well, that benchmark doesn't account for our unique product features.
Exactly. It's a defense mechanism against ego depletion. Overcoming this requires a fundamental shift in organizational culture. Benchmarking has to be positioned as an active approach to agile innovation, not a passive report card.
Not a grade.
Right. If the dashboard reveals a massive performance gap, that is not a localized failure. It is the exact coordinates of your next strategic victory. It removes all the guesswork from resource allocation.
I love that framing. So once that analysis is completed objectively, the organization moves to step 5, the action plan. This is where the insights are translated into specific, measurable actions. Key performance indicators are assigned to stakeholders. The benchmark has revealed the gap, and the action plan outlines the bridge to cross it.
And finally, step 6, monitor progress. Because a strategy is really only a hypothesis until the results are measured.
Right. You have to prove it works.
The organization must track the newly established short-term and long-term KPIs against the original benchmark. And importantly, this isn't a linear process with an endpoint, it's a continuous loop.
The goalposts are always moving.
Always. As your performance improves, the industry standard is also moving. The wireframe remains static in its structure, but the data flowing through it dictates an ongoing cycle of adaptation.
So when we distill all of this down, benchmarking is much, much more than a competitive comparison. It really is a navigational system for operational excellence.
It's your GPS.
Exactly. By taking the deep environmental context of benchmarking and pairing it with the visual clarity of a dashboard wireframe built in mockup, an organization basically stops drowning in raw numbers. They begin looking at a highly targeted roadmap of their industry's future.
Because in a business environment that changes daily, the ability to transform disparate, heavy data sets into meaningful, real-time insights is truly the only sustainable method for innovation.
It's adapt or die.
Pretty much. Benchmarking provides the necessary friction. It forces a company to acknowledge reality, and the wireframe dashboard provides the exact lens needed to understand it.
It always comes back to the environment. You have to know what road you were driving on. But before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought regarding that concept of generic benchmarking we talked about. Deliberately looking outside your own operational bubble.
The fast food analogy.
Exactly. Think about your own workflows for a second. What is one entirely unrelated industry, a business completely foreign to your own, that you could borrow a metric or a structural logic from today to absolutely revolutionize how you wireframe your next dashboard? Step outside your industry, find the hidden efficiencies, and keep questioning your data.
Such a great question to mull over.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we will catch you next time.